Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Breaking news tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
From the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. This is your host, Ashton for Orbs. Happy to be here, guys. I hope you're happy to be here as well. Guys, tonight, I want to talk about a version of cold fusion, a version of free energy, which is cold fusion. More specifically, just fusion research overall. Before I do that, I want to piggyback. If you didn't watch the Sonia Poulton discussion I did, I had a quick chat with her over lunch on my lunch break for about 20 minutes. Check that out. Kind of explained the fundamental concepts around free energy, how it's possible utilizing 0-point energy. So I wanted to take this opportunity tonight to build upon that and to expand upon how it relates to fusion research. Because I think that a lot of people don't really understand how fusion research works. Also, quick shout out. Thank you. We Are the Change. Appreciate that donation. Okay. First thing I want to talk about is, how did I know that this MH370 video led to cold fusion, or led to free energy? Keep replacing cold fusion with free energy. How is it that this video leads to free energy? It's hard to even think back at this point, at a time before I even understood this physics now. It honestly feels like a different time if you go back to the earlier streams that I did before I started digging into the science. And the thing about this video is that the energy requirements to produce a wormhole, given our, let's call it the classical understanding of physics, are massive. So massive that it's counterproductive to even try. You'd have to make a planetary body that you need the mass energy of Jupiter. So when you see something like this and you realize that this is real, then whatever's happening here, maybe they're figured out how to produce the energy of Jupiter, or this is a much lower energy phase transition. So 2 ways of looking at it. And ultimately, they both lead to the same conclusion. Okay. There we go. One is that we have potentially the ability to amplify energy up. We can amplify energy up somehow to reach the energy level we need for Jupiter. The other way is that we have access to negative energy. And negative energy would be the ability to counteract the positive energy requirement. So if we need, let's say that we need this much Jupiter positive energy to produce our wormhole. One way is we can amplify energy up. Okay. The other way is we can bring down the energy requirement by adding negative energy to the equation. We add our negative energy to the equation. Now the requirement starts to come down. Potentially, you can bring it down to 0. Potentially. Now, either of these scenarios being true, doesn't matter which one the right one is, both of them are free energy. Both of them are free energy. Think about that. And why is that the case? Because what is free energy? What does free energy actually mean? If you really boil it down to the root definition of free energy, you're talking about getting more energy out than what you're getting in. So it's really a matter of efficiency. If your efficiency is more than 1, better than what you're putting in, you're getting what we call over unity. So this is why you hear the term over unity constantly applied to free energy. It's a matter of efficiency. And if you can amplify energy or somehow reduce the energy requirements through negative energy, whatever that is, then now you have basically just opened the door to low temperature, relatively low temperature, what we call nuclear reactions. Atomic elements fusing, coming apart. Tic Tac Tundra says, Helion Energy Magneto Inertial Fusion Tech U.S. Air Force ties since 1990. Fact. Well, thank you for that donation. I don't know exactly what that means, but I appreciate it. Now, the idea of fusion research is that we try to reduce the boundaries for atoms or nuclei to come together, to fuse. And when they fuse, they will release excess energy. That's what we're trying to accomplish. In order to do that, to get them to come together, they're trying to, just like with similar polarity magnets, if you try to jam them together, they repel. And the closer you are, the more powerful they repel. So we have to get them over the Coulomb barrier, which is a barrier in which after they get over this barrier, they're going to come together. So we need to reduce the Coulomb barrier. Reduce the Coulomb barrier. Now, generally, hot fusion research, which is 100% verifiable scam, absolute scam. People call me a grifter. They call me a grifter. And I would say, by what metric? If I'm a grifter, what the hell is hot fusion research? What's the thing times a million that's a grifter? Because I would define grifter by taking people's money and producing no tangible results. That's called grifting, right? That's what hot fusion has been doing, not for just a few years, for like 70 years. They've produced nothing, and they've gotten billions and billions of dollars. I've asked for $0. $0 I've ever asked for from any of the people out there. And I've given away an extreme amount of knowledge and content for nothing, which I think is beneficial. So, holy crap. If I'm a grifter, then please, I'm not doing the right thing. Clearly. The hot fusion scam is this. The hot fusion scam is that the only way that we're going to get over this Coulomb barrier is if we increase the energy levels, if we add in a bunch of energy, heat, whatever we got to add in there, into the equation. Add in a bunch of energy. The reason why we think this is because we don't believe that we can manipulate gravity. Now, I want to flip over. this is going to be a rare one, chat. Get ready for this. And go to a place I call Reddit. Get your crosses and your holy water ready. I don't know if we're going to survive this incursion. We will see. Here we go. As you can see, by the way, definitive proof that I'm still banned on Reddit. Still banned on Reddit permanently for talking about free energy. That's what happens if you talk about free energy on Reddit, chat. You get permanently banned for no reason. But I think we might be safe on this area of Reddit. This post on the Fusion subreddit called Fusion and Gravity. Fusion and Gravity has 0 upvotes as the time of this recording. 0 upvotes. You know it's going to be good if it's got 0 upvotes. That usually means that it's going to trigger some people. So let's see what it says. It seems that fusion is often looked at as the long-term source of power that we should be driving towards. And it makes sense. It's clean in theory. Fusion could be very useful for intergalactic travel. And fusion is the energy source of stars. But it isn't. Immense gravity is what causes the pressure, heat, and environment for the star fusion to occur, making the fusion of stars essentially the byproduct of gravity. Gravity from immense mass is the free lunch that is responsible for generating the energy of stars and releasing it via fusion. While the search to find a net power gain from fusion technology is appropriate, it seems to me that expectations for fusion technology should be tempered with the realization that gravity and not fusion is what sets the environment and in turn creates most of the energy in the universe via stars. Therefore, if you were looking for a way to leverage star power, it seems to me like you would want to warp space-time in a similar way to gravity, but in a smaller and more controlled fashion in order to create the environment for major net energy gain fusion to occur. Since gravity is the free lunch that creates star power and realizes it via fusion, is, at least in theory, the more direct way to achieve the power of the sun. Shout out to FTL1061. Amazing post. And of course, as you would expect, when you go into the comments, it's full of retards. It's full of people who think that they're smart, who are actually complete and total morons. And he makes great points in the comments too, saying that what we've been doing is not practical. If you look at the monetary cost of what these fusion companies are doing, there's no chance it could ever really happen. And full of people just repeating the same NPC stuff that you see from other people, where like, well, gravity is a weak force, therefore it can't be used. Gravity has no relationship to electromagnetism. Nobody believes that. So, there we go. What is the secret? I don't like to make people wait till the end of the live streams. The secret is gravity, the secret to fusion. We have been trying to do a workaround to get fusion to work. That's why it's been failing. I am so goddamn sick and tired. Pardon my blasphemy, but I am so sick and tired of researching something only to find out it's been a bunch of blue-pilled idiots ignoring the answer, staring them 6 inches in front of their face. And they're just ignoring it. It happened with MH370. I investigated the missing plane. I find out there's a major conspiracy. And the reason why it hasn't been obviously just blown up and exposed is because all the people who are investigating are completely incompetent, have no business being investigators or journalists. They're all incompetent, and they can't unbias themselves from their weird political affiliations. And sadly, that's the way of the world. And it turns out when I looked into cold fusion, it's all the same bullshit all over again, except for in this case, instead of the UFO community and all these other weird communities that believe that they're obsessed with aliens and psychic powers, in the academic community, it's all about their egos and narcissisms and their little academic awards and who's got the best awards, who's got the most prestige. Ooh, I got more prestige than you. I'm better than you. It's just like, holy crap. No wonder that they've been completely incompetent failures. Everybody in the academic community who has not figured out gravity and fusion are just completely incompetent, and they should take your PhDs away. They should take your PhDs and burn them up in a cold fusion reactor because they're worthless. Imagine missing something this huge. Why are we trying to do hot fusion when, just like that post said, factually said, the only reason why the star is even hot to begin with is gravity? This is why when I started to think about it, guys, and let's just think about it together here, logically, right? We're thinking about fusion and we're going, aren't we just doing it all wrong? Like, you think, okay, what are the ways we could produce a star? Well, we would want gravity. And they're like, well, gravity produces pressure and heat. So what if we just get pressure and heat? And then we can produce fusion. That's kind of where we're at right now. And we're just skipping the gravity part. And we're going, well, wait, no, this is like you're indirectly doing this. So if you're indirectly doing something, it's never going to be as efficient as going at the direct approach. The answer is, of course, we manipulate gravity. Why? Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to overcome that Coulomb barrier and get our two atoms, or two nuclei, to fuse. Ideally, what we do is we strip the electrons off of hydrogen, we strip the electrons off this other hydrogen, and now we take those positively charged ions and we fuse them together. So instead of just increasing the temperature and hoping they just come together, why don't we create a gradient, like a hill? We create a hill, and they just naturally come together. In fact, maybe our hill could potentially look like, the Tesla sign, an umbrella, potentially. I don't know. That's just one of the what is it? Kind of shapes that I've seen related to to fusion in general. Now, there are a few different ways that people have speculated. Well, let's just say, first of all, cold fusion. What is cold fusion? Cold fusion is this idea that we don't need hot temperatures to produce fusion results. And how do we know that that must be the case? Because biological systems, any biological being, many at least, maybe not any, but at least many, are producing fusion through the biological processes. They're producing elements that don't exist, that they're not inputting into their system. So it must be possible to do fusion at temperatures that are not required of the sun. But let's just not go there that far for right now. Let's just stick with, how do we do what the sun is doing? And people have realized that if what we're trying to do is overcome the Coulomb barrier, let's try to go about the problem in different ways. Some of the different ways that I've read about, or ways that people talk about, Muon catalyzed fusion. And we're going to go into depth on more of these in a little bit. Muon catalyzed fusion, however you pronounce it. Magnetically confined fusion, and lattice confined fusion. So we're going to dig into these concepts a little bit. and why they're generally relevant, but also why, well, maybe the last one is the answer, but the others probably are not correct. Now, before I do that, I want to share and go over a scientific paper with you. Okay? So now that I've just presented the argument that gravity is the answer, it was always the answer. Anything that was not doing fusion with gravity was never going to be successful, never even had a chance of being successful. Because you're not going to the source, you're not going to be successful. And in fusion, what we're trying to do is we're trying to produce free energy. Anybody trying to tell you differently is full of shit. We're trying to produce free energy. We're trying to produce coefficient of performance greater than 1. Ultimately, that's free energy. People are going to say, well, it produces coefficient of performance greater than 1, but technically there's a catalyst that you have a hydrogen atom. It's like, dude, hydrogen atom is my catalyst? Bro, hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. It's like there's not even a comparison. Like air is my catalyst. Okay, well, we have free energy then because there's plenty of air to go around. That's kind of the point of 0 point energy. There's enough 0 point energy to go around. Hang tight, Dave Roscoe. Don't worry. Don't get your panties in a bunch just yet. You're about literally 5 minutes too early. Hang on to this thought, okay? Gravity is not the answer. Spin control is the answer. Okay. Hold up. This is the next thing I wanted to share with you. You were like, so just a second too soon. Pretty funny. I found this scientific paper. And can somebody please just have a normal name that's easy to pronounce? I'm already terrible at pronouncing names, but then you come at me with Lucian M. Ionescu. I don't know. Anyway, January 2022. In short note, gravity control is related to cold fusion. In recent articles, it was explained the quantum origin of gravity derived from the finite gauge groups, Platonic. As a byproduct, the gravitational potential can be controlled in a similar way to temperature via dynamic nuclear orientation of spins. It is surprising that another consequence is the possibility to reorient the spins to allow for weaker electrostatic repulsion in nuclei with obvious applications to cold fusion. Yahtzee! Look at how we bazinga'd on Dave right there, chat. Dave came at me and just set me up for that, the home run. Knock it out of the park. Blazow. So, this paper argues that really what's causing the force of gravity is related to the quantum spin. And we can potentially manipulate that spin. And if we manipulate the spin, it will actually manipulate the electrostatic repulsion, which is the Coulomb barrier. When they say here, this paper at the beginning says when it has obvious applications for cold fusion, well, it's because what did I just describe? I just told you that we need to bring down the Coulomb barrier. That's the whole point. And then our ions will combine more often. And this paper right off the bat is coming at us hot saying, well, turns out gravity manipulation is just manipulating the quantum spin. So if we manipulate our quantum spin, we can manipulate gravity, and that will bring down the Coulomb barrier. And if we bring down the Coulomb barrier, then our electrons will also be able to come closer together when they shouldn't. That's interesting. What else had electrons coming together when they shouldn't do that? Oh, yeah. The condensed charge research by Ken Shoulders and Hal Puthoff. They couldn't explain why the electrons were coming together when they should be getting repelled by the Coulomb repulsion. Showing indeed, Lauren White. Showing indeed. Oh, this isn't even the thing yet, guys. This isn't even the thing yet. If you thought this was the big spoiler reveal thing, no. Oh no. I'm just getting started. Here we go. Okay. So I wrote down some notes for us here. So at one point here it says the EM spectrum has an additional finer split, which accounts for gravity. So when these people are doing these weird equations here that you see for us non-nerds, they're talking about taking our three-dimensional space-time and trying to put it into numbers. So what he's saying here is that there should be another split where actually gravity is going to be connected to electromagnetism. Oh, wow. Okay, that's pretty cool. And then he says that related to the spin, the energy levels depend on the spin orientation of the interacting nucleons. Here it is. And then in this equation, it says the first term is responsible for the rotational symmetric Coulomb potential, while the second term produces what we call gravity. Except it is directional dependent. This implies that potentially controlling gravity, you can control it in any direction. You could control it in any direction, which would make sense, especially if it's just a matter of manipulating electromagnetism and charge, electricity. If it's a matter of manipulating that, then yes, you could easily control it in any direction. The overall force in an interaction between two baryons is an average over directions. Now, why did I bring this random sentence up, which actually truthfully doesn't make any sense to me? Baryons are like subatomic particles. So like beyond, like in the quantum level, I guess. And I brought this up because this is speaking to like oscillations at the quantum level. I'm pretty sure this is speaking to oscillations at the quantum level. And it was Eric W. Davis that said if you can manipulate the baryons, I think it was the baryons or the gluons or something, then you can manipulate mass and inertia, but not directly, only if you manipulate this space-time vacuum, quantum vacuum. Oh, look, there's Dave. And this is I was going to bring this up as well, but I'll bring it up right now, is that I can tell from reading this, there's a lot of papers like this where a lot of people have figured this out. When people ask me, like, how have people not figured this out before? I always say they have. They have, and people are still figuring it out newly every day. Anyway, let's keep going on. So then it says this leads to gravity control. So then it explains a little bit more about just treating, if you treat the universe in the thermodynamic sense, and as a temperature as an analog for gravitational potential, then we can manipulate nuclear dynamic orientation of spin to manipulate gravity relative to the Earth. So when people say anti-gravity is not correct, because you're not just getting rid of the gravity. You're creating a counter force to the Earth's force of gravity. The Earth's force of gravity is forcing us downward at 9.81 meters per second. So if I want to go upward, I need an upward force of greater than 9.81 meters per second. It's that simple. Gravity manipulation is manipulating space-time to create a force in any direction that you want, including inward force or outward force. Now, why is that relevant? Now you're seeing the connection between propulsion, gravity propulsion, and fusion research. Why is there a direct connection between these topics of UFOs, gravity propulsion, warp drives, and fusion? Because they're all based on manipulating gravity. All of them are. So that's what he's saying right there, is that if we manipulate the nuclear orientations of the spin, we can create gravity in any direction that we want. And it can easily counteract the Earth's gravity if that's what we want. And so, yes, it becomes really, because gravity is a pressure force. Gravity is a pressure force. Basically, a warp drive becomes a pressure drive, a vacuum drive. Yes, exactly. And you're creating a bubble, and then you're just vacuum tubing yourself instantly anywhere else you want to go. And then the challenge is, where do you want to go? And how do you want to get there? Okay. And then he says as well, takes it further. And this paper is really interesting. And here's a link to it if you want to see it. JK Philly fan, the hero, brought it up. Actually, I'm just going to read the whole part about cold fusion. Okay. In a nucleus, the orientation of the spins affects the short distance electric force due to fractional charges. Neutrinos with a non-trivial fractional electric charge in discrete configurations adequately oriented may neutralize and couple protons. So essentially what he's saying here is that when we think of a nucleus and the electrons around a nucleus, it's not perfect. It's not perfect. And the Lamb shift shows this. The Lamb shift shows that there's like unusual patterns begin to form because the electrons will interact with one another. They interact with themselves. They interact with the nucleus, and then the quantum effects take over. So you have some strange behavior happen at these quantum scales. So when the nuclei are coming closer together, the picture that happens is a lot more confusing than just a simple, is the force outward or inward? And then what he's saying here is that this is where the spin orientation becomes really important. The spin orientation, if you have two bodies coming at one another, it's not as simple as just taking two like balls of spheres and having them come and collide. When we're dealing with atoms, these things are spinning. They have quantum spin. So they're spinning. Imagine they're spinning super fast, though. The direction and the orientation of that spin relative to the other one makes a huge difference. If these things are spin-oriented correctly, the energy required to make them fuse could be zero, practically nothing. If their spin is the exact wrong orientation, opposite, they might never be able to fuse together. So if we think about it like a spectrum of what's the probability that they're going to fuse together, this helps us understand what's really at play here. And then if we can manipulate the spin, if we can change the probability. So if we have this probability chart and it says the ones with the correct spin are going to have basically zero energy requirement, and the ones with the incorrect spin are going to have a huge energy requirement. Now we've just solved all of fusion. We just solved fusion right here and right now. Because whatever mechanism leads to the correct spin orientation has just reduced our energy requirement to basically zero. Or extremely reduced our energy requirement, according to this paper here. Okay. And then it also brings up the biological thing here about chickens. Chickens may transmute elements, including the calcium needed to produce the shells that they make for the eggs. So now we have a solid understanding for And also says this is the tensorial electric interaction law in magnetism comes from Lorentz transformation and from fluxons as sources of magnetic fields. So now we have a solid foundation for explaining cold fusion in terms of modification of the standard model. Okay. Nuclear chickens, chat. Indeed, nuclear chickens. Okay, a couple of last things on here. So it says this guy, Frank, oh man, they can't ever have a normal name. Frank Znardnik. That's what you get. Znardnik. That's what you get for having a name like that. That's how you get it pronounced. Okay. Anyway, pretty interesting part about here. It says his central concept is what he calls the speed of sound, which is the transfer of vibrations in nuclei. This is complementary to the speed of light. While and then he explains when they talk about like this SU2 stuff, they're talking about like the geometry of the universe. How many dimensions are there? Stuff like that. But this is the other really interesting part. This duality has to be interpreted in the relation with the fine structure constant. Fine structure constant is Planck's constant times speed of light divided by electric charge squared, or what is that? Charge squared? I don't know. Someone will correct me. And the two fundamental charges, the electric charge, QE, Q divided by C, and the magnetic, QM, H bar divided by Q. Okay. So the reason why I bring this up is because sound, thank you. Appreciate it. Sound seems to have a gravitational component to it in the sense that you can make stuff levitate with sound. Why can you make stuff levitate with sound? The answer is vibration. Think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Tesla said that. Because Tesla knew that our entire universe is related to vibration. And we can interact with this vibrational energy, this quantum energy, this 0 point energy by using resonance. And we're going to prove that tonight. Another thing that says here too. This was a really interesting paper to find. With simple equations relating these classical observables, he can derive various quantum mechanical quantities. Spectrum of the hydrogen atom, relate with Planck's constant. This is very similar to what Sal's been saying. The central equation is, of course, the classic harmonic oscillator. There it is. Classic harmonic oscillator. Do you guys remember? I posted one research paper by Dave Rossi, who's now been on Jesse Michaels, who I'm friends with. And his paper was about quadrupole oscillation. I didn't know what the hell he was talking about at the time, to be truthful with you. But notice that all of these people, when they talk about free energy, when they talk about gravity, they're always talking about oscillators, harmonic oscillator. Why? What is a harmonic oscillator? A harmonic oscillator is going to be something where when you hit a harmonic, you are going to achieve coherence. So you are interacting with that like imagine something's vibrating like this, and I want to interact with it. Well, the first way I would imagine I want to interact with it is I'm going to interact at the same speed. If I go half speed, it's not going to interact. Guys, this is really hard to do, chat. Anyway, you get my point, is that you want to become resonant where both hands are wobbling at the same time, or half speed, some factor, some harmonic variant of the wavelength of the 0 point energy, of the energy all around us. So that specifically is important for gravity control and potentially controlling the dynamic spin, as is mentioned. The truth is, I don't know. But then it says as well, it mentions something about impedance matching. Another central concept used is that of impedance and the idea of matching impedance, enabling transfer of impulses between interacting quantum states. This is quite familiar in electronics and communications. The present author emphasized this analogy, coining the term infotronics. The low energy physics is much richer in key aspects of quantum phenomenon than high energy physics. So, yeah, impedance matching is maximizing power transfer. So a lot of stuff, really cool things being mentioned in this scientific paper. And then lastly, it says the finite number of discrete states hypothesis from the quantum phase Z to the U1, which is this understanding of the universe, thinks of Bohr's model of the electron orbits to, I don't know that shape. Anyway, into like the SU geometry, essentially quantizing angular momentum. So we're quantizing angular momentum. As a consequence, leads to several breakthroughs. Explanation of the 3 generations of fermions. I don't know what that means. Model for quark flavors. I hope that they have a mint cookies flavor. And quantum origin of gravity. Plus possibility to control gravity. And finally, possibility of explaining cold fusion. Overall, low energy physics is a much richer than high energy physics. I like this paper a lot. And I think it's very similar to what Salvatore Pais has been saying. Let me hit a couple more of these donos. Yeah, thanks, Fly Ether. Academia charges millions for lies and nonsense, and listening to science and physics is free here. Thank you for that donation, Fly Ether. And everybody follow Fly Ether if you don't, especially on Twitter, where he produces absolutely amazing clips. He's been producing amazing clips of me for a while. Tic Tac Tundra, thank you very much. Magneto Inertial Fusion, Z-Pinch. Yes, Z-Pinch should probably be listed as well. And then also Shoulders Blasted Metal with an energized EVO in an MIT lab. That's awesome. Yeah. And then Ken Shoulders, we haven't talked about his version as well. So let me look at my list here. What's next? Okay. So now that we have a pretty strong basis to understand that gravity control is really possibly the only way that fusion will be achieved, let's take a look at muon catalyzed fusion. So this is going to be one where we're looking at the normies and what their perspectives are of fusion. And this is another thing too, where it's like, it's crazy how condescending some of these people are when it comes to, oh, well, that's impossible. That can never work. When we're literally dealing with a science in fusion that for 70 years has produced nothing. How can you be confident? This is like the MH370 people saying, like, you're going to look so silly when they find the plane. Like, bro, you've been failing for 11 years. For 11 years, you found nothing, 0 results. And you're telling me I'm going to look silly? Look in the mirror. You're dressed like a clown. You got clown makeup on. You're ready for the circus.
Nuclear fusion, of course, happens when atomic nuclei, like hydrogen nuclei, come close enough together that their strong nuclear attraction can overcome their electric repulsion, and they fuse together into a single, bigger nucleus, like helium. This typically happens in a plasma, that is, a super hot soup of electrons and atomic nuclei, where if it's hot enough, every once in a while, 2 nuclei bump hard enough into each other to fuse. But fusion can in principle happen in regular non-plasma molecules too, like the hydrogen molecule, in which two hydrogen nuclei are kept relatively near to each other by sharing electrons. The nuclei don't stay separated a rigid distance apart though. They vibrate and wiggle, and every so often they can, in principle, get close enough to fuse together. But with hydrogen, or nitrogen, or oxygen, or pretty much all other molecules, this happens exceedingly rarely, which is why our atmosphere, which has a fair amount of molecules, isn't a giant fusion bomb. However, things are different if you replace the electrons with particles called muons, which are basically exactly the same as electrons, except 200 times heavier. Muons, being essentially heavy electrons, form atoms and molecules in almost the exact same way as electrons, but since they're heavier, their orbits are much closer to the nucleus than an electron with the same energy and angular momentum would.
Okay. Muon catalyzed fusion. This has got to be the stupidest one of all of them. Honestly, the more I learn about muon catalyzed fusion, the more I realize this has got to be the stupidest one. So, what's the gist here? He basically just repeated what I've already kind of told you, that we're trying to get this Coulomb repulsion barrier down. We want to get the Coulomb repulsion barrier down. One way we do that is we get these special electrons that are heavier electrons. Because if we get these heavier electrons, then our barrier is naturally reduced. So heavier electrons mean the Coulomb barrier is going to be reduced. Okay, that sounds great in principle. What we're about to learn right now on this stream, hi, hey, Ocean, hope you're feeling well, is that it's not efficient at all to produce these heavy electrons. That these special heavy electrons we need, it's just like ridiculously inefficient to even produce them. That in order to produce the heavy electrons, there's no natural way to get them. That it was just going to take like way, way more energy than what we would get out of the whole process. And the reason why I'm spoiling it right now, as we listen to the rest of this explanation, I'm going, this is just how dumb we are. Is that we're going, this is our best approach, one that's just literally impossible from basic math on doing the math equations of the energy. That's our best bet. Clearly, there must be another way. I don't think that nobody should be ridiculing cold fusion that can't explain how gravity works. If you can't explain what gravity is and where it's coming from and how to manipulate it, definitely shouldn't be making fun of cold fusion. Okay. Because at the end of the day, what's really the answer for this? We're in a medium. We are in a medium, and if you interact with that medium, you can create a well, a vortex. And if you create a vortex, you're going to have fusion happen because things are coming together, right? This is the idea, is that if I have two paths, right? What does gravity do? Gravity causes the paths to come together. They're both going straight, but gravity causes them to converge. That's what gravity does. So if we utilize that, naturally, we're going to get fusion happening. No question. Where's my thing?
Would be. And this means that atoms and molecules held together with muons instead of electrons are about 200 times smaller, and their nuclei are correspondingly about 200 times closer together. And being closer together makes nuclei many, many, many times more likely to fuse together. So much so that the nuclei in hydrogen molecules made with muons can fuse together at temperatures much lower than the core of the sun. Even room temperature, which was predicted in 1947 and experimentally achieved in 1956. Physicists have even managed to achieve muon-aided nuclear fusion at temperatures close to absolute zero. So at this point, you're probably asking yourself, if room temperature nuclear fusion exists, why aren't we using it to power modern civilization? Well, while muon-facilitated fusion is indeed fully legit nuclear fusion at non-crazy temperatures, there are some major problems which prevent it from being used as a power source. First, muons don't live very long. Unlike electrons, which have an, in principle, infinite lifespan, after about 2 microseconds, muons spontaneously decay into an electron and some neutrinos. So if you're going to do anything with muons, you have to do it real quick. This turns out not to matter much for the purposes of facilitating fusion, but because of their short lifespan, there aren't a ton of muons around. So if you want
I'm just sitting here muted. No worries, chat. Just muted. Just sitting here quietly. I was even talking when there was just the camera. Okay. What did I say? Yes. Okay. So end of the day, Muon catalyzed fusion only produces 2.7 GeV, and it takes 5 GeV in order to produce one of these heavy electron things, Muon electron things. So basic math, everybody knows basic math here, right? If you can do basic math, you can tell that as long as 5 is bigger than 2.7, then this is never going to be productive. And the sad part about this is it doesn't matter which physics you use. All the physics says this can never be productive. there's no physics that you can do that this is going to work out anymore. It's because that's just straight up math on it. So, I mean, I guess in theory, if you can find a way to produce these muons at a cheaper cost, but if you can produce the muons at a cheaper cost, then you already have free energy. So it's like, and the only way to ever get this to work would be that you would already need to have a better way to produce free energy. That's the only way this can ever be productive. This is why this is the stupidest one. This is why the stupidest one. Pretty funny though. For the record, I know about Bruce Sees All because I know about Chet. Dude, who are you talking to here? Do you not know that I am the world's leading expert on Ripple Moon? I am the Ripple Moon expert. Ripple Moon is a real phenomenon that nobody can explain. It's not some weird camera thing. It's a Ripple Moon. Anyway, side note, that we're not going to go into the lore tonight on Ripple Moon, chat. Just know that I'm an OG. Okay? I'm an OG Ripple Moon. These people. Guys, we have noobs coming in thinking that I'm not Ripple Moon. I've been on Ripple Moon for a while. Anyway. Okay. So, scam number 1, Muon Catalyzed. And of course, in the beginning, this guy is like all talking about how, yes, cold fusion's real, but only this one that doesn't ever work. He's like, the cold fusion everybody else was doing is stupid. It's like, okay, wait, you're going to say that, but then you're going to hate? Okay, the next one, Lattice Confined Fusion. So here's another thought for you. And thank you for the goat emojis. I think that's a goat. It might be a Pokemon. I don't know. What is that? I'm actually just pretending. Of course I can't. I'm not really looking at the emoji here. Okay. The next one is Lattice Confined Fusion. Now think about this for a second. What are we trying to do with fusion? We are trying to reduce the Coulomb barrier. We're trying to bring these ions together, get them to fuse together. Well, what's one way to do that? What if we just confine them into a smaller and smaller region of space? The smaller we confine the region, if you're in a box, you're more likely to bump into somebody else in the box if the box is really, really small. So make the box really, really small. If you make the box really small, they're more likely to collide. This is the idea behind lattice confined fusion, I think. I hope it is. I hope it's not a misnomer. Now let's go to the paper on it real quick. Now this one, and we're not going to do a deep dive on this. I ain't got time for all that, chat. What do you think I am, some kind of science man? Lattice confined fusion. This is NASA Glenn Research Center. This is also the exact same place where Salvatore Pais was like, I don't know, something when he was a graduate student working at NASA. No big deal. NASA detects lattice confinement fusion. A team of NASA researchers seeking new energy sources for deep space exploration recently revealed a method for triggering nuclear fusion in the space between the atoms of a solid metal. Lattice confinement fusion, the method NASA revealed, accomplishes fusion reactions with the fuel deuterium, a widely known available non-radioactive hydrogen isotope, confined in the space between the atoms of a metal solid. Well, what do you know, chat? What do you know? Look at that. They're confining the atoms in the space between the atoms of a metal solid. So why are they putting metal rods in heavy water? That's what they're talking about here, by the way. Put rods in heavy water. Well, why? Because they're saying it's causing fusion, because they're confining the lattice. The lattice structure is the walls. What are the walls? What are the barriers of your element? In previous fusion research, such as inertial confinement research, fuel such as deuterium is compressed to extremely high levels, but only for a short nanosecond period of time. In magnetic confinement fusion, the fuel is heated in a plasma. Well, this saves me the time here of explaining the others. In magnetic confinement fusion, the fuel is heated in a plasma to temperatures much higher than that of the sun. In this new method, conditions sufficient for fusion are created in the confines of the metal lattice that is held at ambient temperature. While the metal lattice, loaded with deuterium fuel, may initially appear to be at room temperature, the new method creates an energetic environment inside the lattice where individual atoms achieve equivalent fusion-level kinetic energies. Chat, when people tell you that free energy is not real, just point to NASA. Point to this. You can see the link at the top, right? Maybe you can't see it. I'll put it in the chat. Yeah, hello, General Flynn, by the way. If he's there, I hope he is watching. Because I'm just, by the way, I'm no disrespect, General, to the military. I actually work with the veterans of the military every single day. But, damn, we do some evil shit. Apparently, we do evil shit like hiding free energy from the world. So anyway, if someone tries to tell you free energy is not real, you just point to this website on NASA and you say, well, NASA disagrees. NASA says that cold fusion is absolutely real. Right there. And I've just now explained it. Everybody who's watched this live stream should now be able to independently at least explain the differences between the various forms of fusion and how, no question, lattice confinement fusion is cold fusion. When we talk about cold, we're talking about it's not happening at the temperatures of the sun. Especially not if it's just happening in some water with metal rods in it. Now, if you thought that was all, of course not. I've got the actual paper right here. Why? Because the paper authors are quite interesting. The author of this paper includes Larry Forsley, who's friends with Hal Puthoff. Why is Hal Puthoff friends with every single free energy scientist on the planet? Hal Puthoff is friends with Larry Forsley. Larry Forsley was on one of those NASA podcasts recently. He was on, I think, the episode 69, right? The big one, the crazy one, where they're just talking about alien like parts and 0-point energy and aneutronic fusion. So right here in this paper, they're basically saying, and I don't know if it's this one or the other one, They basically just say that they've just achieved fusion. They're getting energy out. So here you go. Larry Forsley. Here's the paper as well. I'll put this in the chat for you guys if you're interested. Oh, yeah, and just for fun, I'll just drop right now that I spoke with Greenyer's people. They're pretty interesting. Something might happen with that. We'll see. I agree with Greenyer on a lot of stuff. The United States government's definitely hiding this technology. No question. They figured it out. And it's not as simple as the United States government, but they're ultimately like the people at the top. But obviously the defense contractors, you could argue they have more power. But yeah, they've got this technology. They've had it for a long time. And it's time for us to tell the truth about it, is the reality. Okay, so 2 more last thoughts, and then I want to go to what I teased for you guys. It was important that you understand the concepts before we watch this video. So now we understand that we're trying to reduce the Coulomb barrier to allow for our ions to come together more easily. This can also explain what we see when we see our condensed charge research, also known as exotic vacuum objects, by Ken Shoulders. Why do we see all the electrons come together? Because they are manipulating the Coulomb barrier. They're manipulating it via some form of gravitational control, direct gravitational control over the plasma. And the other thing is that they're producing a negative pressure. They're producing this attractive force. They are tickling the vacuum, as Tom Bearden would say it. Is that when you achieve this harmonic resonance, you can tickle the vacuum and you can cause, from a physics perspective, you can cause a change in the electric permittivity and magnetic permeability, the refractive index. You can polarize the vacuum. You can change it. That's the thing that people don't really realize. But we can manipulate the vacuum. And if we manipulate the vacuum, we can manipulate gravity. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. One last thought is that on the video that I'm going to show, a lot of people said it's just plasma. It's just plasma. You hear this a lot from people. They'll say, it's just that. It's just this. And the reason is, yes, there's no new magical physics that's going to come out of a box that has never been seen before. It's already all been figured out. And actually, the answer was always that it was a new approach to old physics. One simple example I'll give you to prove that case is that old physics believes that negative energy is an exotic substance. Using the exact same physics, exact same equations, I can make an argument that it's not an exotic substance, that all it is taking the 0 point energy around us, what we think of as the lowest vacuum state, and going lower. That's 0. That's our 0 going below 0. Simple as that. That all I did right there, right now, in the middle of this stream, is look at the same exact problem and change my conceptual view of the problem. Instead of looking for an exotic substance, I said, what if it's our view of the universe that needs to be shifted? What if that's the thing that we need to change? And when you do that, all of a sudden, everything falls into place. from the physics perspective. All the things we can't explain: mass, inertia, gravity, dark energy, dark matter, three-body problem. Saw Terrence Howard talking about the three-body problem. What do you mean you solved the three-body problem? The ether solved the three-body problem. 0-point energy solves the three-body problem. Three-body problem isn't really a problem. It's a problem for classical physics, not a problem for people that understand that 0-point energy is all around everywhere. Of course, there's more stickiness because space isn't empty. That's the problem. That's the answer, guys. The three-body problem. There, I solved it in 5 seconds. Space isn't empty. That's why things don't. That's why the Earth hasn't been shot out of the solar system by Jupiter like about 1 billion years ago. Spoiler alert. Okay. Here we go, chat. It's time for the main event. Do-it-yourself nuclear Farnsworth fusion reactor. Yes, this is a fusion reactor. Get ready for it.
So that's the deuterium plasma. As the pressure is going down, it changes its shape, size, and appearance. So becoming more and more even until it forms something like a football ball. I don't know. Let me turn off the light to make it.
Oh, no, not like this. What did I just do, chat? Not like
The pressure is going down. Deuterium plasma. So that's the deuterium plasma. As the pressure is going down, it changes its shape, size, and appearance. So becoming more and more even until it forms something like a football ball. I don't know. Let me turn off the light to make it a bit more spectacular. So here it is changing from jet mode to star mode. Please note that this video is also speeded up.
chat. Oh boy, hold on. Oh boy. Does anyone else see what I see? Right around here. Right there. What does that heat signature right there look like to you, chat? I would bet you just about anything that bright spot that goes like this, that is the electrons. That is the electrons creating a vortex flow right there because of the electromagnetic fields being produced by this Farnsworth fuser. So you see the little metal pieces, it's almost like sticking out and it's got the weird stuff. That is creating our flow. And you can see what's happening here is that the electrons are squeezing out through the bottom of this. They're squeezing out. And they're creating this almost umbrella-like shape right here. Now wait for it again. Let's keep going.
100%. Yeah, here's the electron beam forming. Now it forms.
Did you just say electron beam forming?
Yeah, here's the electron beam forming. Now it forms star mode. And after star mode, you can see the glass glowing blue from electron emission. And that's where actually fusion.
Oh boy, chat. Yeah, it's Yahtzee time. If you didn't figure it out already, look at the right side as well. Look at that Tesla sign, that Ukana Vasara on the right. Now I understand why Ukana Vasara. How do you pronounce it? Oh man, I don't know how to pronounce it. Whatever. Tesla sign. Anyway, you see that Tesla sign over there. Here we go. Wait, how can I share like this? It doesn't have sound, right? Let me see if I can share this correctly. Stop sharing that screen. Oh yeah. This maybe. Okay, yeah, that works. We're good to go. Watch closely, chat. What I've done here is I have just slowed down the MH370 drone video to 1/4 speed. Now, keep in mind that Tesla symbol was the thing that Bob Greenyer had spoke about before I ever met him when it came to cold fusion. If you want to know why I'm going full circle here. Okay, here we go. Look at that heat signature in those orbs. You can actually just watch them moving. That heat signature is the same heat signature that we are seeing in that Farnsworth Fuser video. That is the very definitive heat signature of fusion. Not just cold fusion, just fusion through from an electromagnetic field, from a toroidal shape, potentially. So let me just see if I can pause it at a good spot. Oh, missed that one. I mean, look at that. Look at that heat signature right there. Look at this one down here in the bottom left. I mean, wow. So that, let me see if I can do this. The share video thing just sucks now. Now we look back at this, and you can see these orbs are doing something very similar to this fuser. This part right here is also just really good. Because look at that heat signature you see. Imagine seeing this, but on a completely different scale. And it's a plasma ball, not confined in a metal container. But the other big thing about fusion is that fusion is going to happen without a metal container around it. It's going to be the magnetic fields themselves and the air itself acting as an insulator. That's going to cause the plasma to stay in a bubble. It's going to quite literally be a ball of lightning, a ball of energy that is just weirdly trapped in a bubble of space-time. And the reason why it's being trapped there is because you're seeing the clever use of electromagnetic fields to maybe manipulate the nuclear spin of the electrons, of the atoms. So if it is a matter of manipulating the spin, then that might be one answer. And it might be that people have figured out how to do that and manipulate the spin, and they don't even know. And they don't even know it. Maybe Ken Shoulders is one of the people that figured it out, don't even know. So I always want to watch this one more time because it's just awesome. And you can watch this whole video if you want to see like the setup and everything. But, you know, I'm a simple guy. I like to just see the sauce at the end. Here we go.
In plasma, as the pressure is going down, it changes its shape, size, and appearance. So becoming more and more even until it forms something like a football ball. I don't know. Let me turn off the light.
Notice as well as it becomes coherent, he says. You can actually watch it become coherent, right? Like it's not stable at first, and then the shape begins to form. That's what we're talking about. When we talk about coherence, when we talk about harmonics, resonance, we're talking about all of a sudden shape begins to form. Organization.
I don't know. Let me turn off the light.
Why is it organizing?
So here it is changing from jet mode to star mode. Please note that this video is also speeded up 500%. Yeah, here's the electron forming.
Holy shit, that's awesome.
Now it forms star mode. And after star mode, you can see the glass glowing blue from electron emission. And that's where actually fusion might become possible.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
That's it. See you next time.
Cool. There you go. You can follow that guy if you want. Okay. So that is not just simple plasma. And the reason why it's not just simple plasma is its clever use of electromagnetic fields in order to cause the electrons or cause the flow so that plasma will be more likely to interact and fuse. Now, are you going to be able to use that to power your house? No, not in the configuration like that. That type of configuration is simply for demonstration purposes. And the reason why I bring this up is that for people to really be convinced, people say, why don't you build something? Because people have built stuff like that. It's pretty convincing to me. But for a lot of people out there, it's not convincing enough for them. They need to see something literally teleport from one room to the next. And just showing plasma is really cool. I think it helps us to imagine it. But we have to realize that when we're talking about the MH370 videos, the people that have made the Orbs and the MH370 videos are like 50 years beyond where we're at now, gawking over Farnsworth fusers. Right? They were messing around with Farnsworth fusers like in the 50s. You know, now they have figured out how to make a ball of plasma that's already self-organized just using the air as an insulator, the air itself. And the magnetic fields just keep it trapped within this non-radiating barrier. And just one last thought. In fact, maybe I'll just go to the other clip I was going to play. That when I was first looking at the MH370 videos, I can't even remember how I knew it was plasma. I think the answer is because when you look at the videos of the blobs, it's not a solid object. Like you can see the solid plane, but the blobs like are a little bit amorphous. They kind of like change shape a little bit. So I just somehow knew it was a plasma field. Now I know that it absolutely is a plasma field. Like no question that's a plasma ball. And the bright spots, that's the electron flow. It perfectly matches fusion reactors because that's basically a miniature fusion reactor, those balls of plasma. Condensed matter physics, quite interesting stuff. So tonight's moment of Zen is a little bit of a longer one. Did I miss any donos? Let me just. And thank you guys for those donos tonight. It's huge. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. Spiciest episode with extra hot sauce. So we have NASA saying that cold fusion's real. So that in the future, when it turns out it is real, and they can't say that NASA lied to them. They did the research. We've got this clear heat signature of these orbs in the MH370 videos that matches fusion. In fact, to the degree where we can tell that the yellow part of the orb is the electrons. And the reason why we see this shape is because of the magnetic fields that are controlling the movement of the electrons. It's that simple. It's actually that simple. You think some faker hoaxed that? No way. No way. There's no way some hoaxer is some expert at fusion research. Come on, get out of here. And then Tic Tac Tundra, thank you very much for all the donations tonight, brother. Appreciate it. Muon space satellites are really deep. So if we're just going to quickly rank them all, like honestly, if we're just being brutally honest, all the hot fusion is the dumbest because hot fusion literally just ruled out gravity and the secret sauce is gravity. And then how you manipulate gravity, spin, whatever it is, debatable. Muon catalyzed fusion, next stupidest one. Next dumbest one because just the math alone rules it out. The math alone rules it out. And if there is a way to produce muons at a cheaper cost, then you've already figured out free energy anyway. So why bother? So muon catalyzed, next dumbest one. Magnetically confined and inertial confined fusion. Now these two, we didn't really talk about Z-pinch or But like taking magnetic fields and spinning them counterclockwise, that's the same idea as manipulating gravity, I think. Because spinning magnetic fields, as we saw with like Eugene Plotkinov, has like a gravitational type effect. But the same idea there is if we're spinning these magnetic fields, we're creating a pressure causing them to interact with one another. So the ones I like the most are going to be the ones related to using magnetism and pressure to cause stuff to come together. But then again, it's like when you're doing pressure, is it because you're creating a gravitational force that's creating the pressure? Or are you creating a pressure to mimic your gravitational force? If you're going about it from the source to create the gravity, then I think you're on the right track. If you're not, then I don't think you are. Okay, now lastly, this video of Bob Greenyer.
I saw the Jeremy Reese in
Bob Greenyer, and he watched my interview with Jeremy Reese, and he just felt compelled to talk about this.
Force them to make this video with what we know now. This would kind of imply that these are warmer than the environment, and for that to happen, one might expect that if they didn't have their own energy source, they must be extracting the energy from the environment. That the exotic vacuum objects will fire a thing, or it has some sort of projected field out in front of it that will cause other exotic vacuum objects to orbit around them. So there is something that goes out in front. I believe that this is the toroidal moment, the beam that goes out far. This changes.
That part I'm not sure I agree with, but this part here,
this part here.
Here you go.
This changes epsilon 0 of the physical vacuum, and it has like a beam that comes out in front of it, and that enables all of the...
So Bob was basically saying there that he thinks that the direction of the electrons could create the negative energy in front of them, or whatever is being the cold lines in front of them that's pulling them forward. Sure. Seems possible.
Funky magic.
Again, this was like a year and a half ago.
That these things can do. Often we are seeing, and maybe, I don't know if I can zoom in, I can't zoom in. We are seeing the non-radiating boundary, and you can go and look at this with the material as it goes around the right. Now, I'm going to go back and imagine this here.
So this is his diagram. I don't really like it that much. It's kind of hard for me to understand, but basically he's talking about if you create a toroid, a donut, then you're going to see these pressure of the electrons kind of flow out here. That's what you're seeing on this. Oh boy, this one right here.
This is where the torus is kind of focusing its moment to lead to the mono. And this is the glowy bit that you see as material is pushed through, but then it hits the top of the non-radiating boundary and is fed back into the coherent structure. Okay. Here, this is very, very clear. This is almost exactly looking like the Aalto University peer-reviewed published structure. So the monopole would be at this point. The toroidal moment would be going out this way, and you can see the dark area in front. So it's cohering energy from here. It was compelled to do this. Cohering energy from here. Okay. So this is traveling in this direction. The phase inversion, the dark area above.
So this is actually a better screenshot than what I was showing you guys before right here. So the yellow part that you see, and I don't know necessarily agree with everything Bob said there, but that was a year and a half ago too. So a lot's changed since then. But the yellow part up there, that's the electrons. And you're seeing this umbrella from fusion, not necessarily cold fusion, but fusion. The reason why this is cold fusion is because that even the yellow part is colder than the airplane. It's not that hot on an airplane. So this is like room temperature. So this is technically cold fusion. But the point of these orbs is obviously not to transmute elements. The point of these orbs is to teleport that airplane to Diego Garcia or wherever the hell they teleport that airplane.
Will be where it's cohering energy, and you will have the disruption beam coming in to the monopole at the bottom here. So when I saw this video, it was like, well, to fake this one back in 2014 showed incredible understanding of technology that no one had an understanding outside of the black world, even if there was anyone that had an understanding in the black world. To fake this one and have the thermal imaging correctly representing and the non-radiating boundary and everything is beyond imagining. Here, if that doesn't tell you you've got your Ukon of Asara there, I don't know what will, right?
So, and I think I'll probably just let it play out there, but what Bob was saying there is that for somebody to fake that is beyond imagining. Bob's one of the top experts in the world that still researches low energy nuclear reactions, also known as cold fusion. And he looked at that and he sees that heat signature. The same one that we just saw is being represented in the Farnsworth fuser and images on the Department of Energy's website showing that same exact heat signature of the electrons. For some random person to have hoaxed that into a video depicting MH370 being zapped away, who the hell could ever think of that? You're telling me that this random Banksy hoaxer who has better skills than Marvel visual effects experts also just happens on the side be an expert at fusion research and exactly what the electron should look like in a ball of plasma? No chance. No chance in hell. This is why I tell people too, is that there are so many ways in which I know the videos are real. And it's not just like the crazy calls and the people that I talk to that I could never believe in a million years I'd be talking to that are telling me stuff like, you know, they've been exposed to this technology. They just want to know like how it works. Imagine getting a call like that. Or, you know, the people like Salvatore Pais, who like after the interview I did or discussion I did with Dan Davis, which was an amazing conversation, check it out. He sends me an email after that later that night. Sal does. It just says, Dan's wrong. It's the Pais effect. And I'm just like, okay. Like, it's not, because the way that email comes across is it's not like his opinion. It's like he knows. He knows 100%. The same way where Sal once sent me an email. And it was like, this guy wrote this random dude I'd never heard of wrote a scientific paper saying that we would never be able to produce a black hole because the black hole would evaporate from Hawking radiation before you would ever be able to build it up. And Sal just sends me an email being like, this guy will be proven wrong. It's like, those are the kind of things that like, you don't send somebody unless like, you know for sure if that's legit. What a world, chat. Levy, similar to cavitation of torpedoes. It is extremely similar to cavitation of torpedoes. Push your medium away from you, from your object, and you can create a pressure difference and have less drag. Can even do it with ultrasound and air. Plasma lets you do it in the vacuum. Plasma also lets you do it in the air as well. They literally use a plasma sheath for exactly this. That's when I realized that plasma was the answer and that for sure, no doubt, some of the UFO stuff we're seeing is directly connected to fusion. Because I found out they were using plasma sheaths to bypass the drag, which is basically violating the laws, breaking the laws of physics. Well, they're not breaking them. The plasma is just interacting with the quantum vacuum and reducing inertia. If it reduces inertia, it's going to reduce drag. Simple as that. So actually fucking simple. Create a wave in front of you and you can just ride it. Take it to its extreme, and what do you have? A warp drive. Ride the gravity wave, right? Why does Sal Pais know about this? Because he worked for Northrop Grumman and saw the secret sauce. It's like Sal went to KFC, chat. Let me help you out with Gen Zers. Sal went to KFC, worked for KFC. He got the secret sauce, and then he created his own KFC. But he went and worked for the Navy. You know what? Controversial take. I think Sal Pais might be an indentured servant of the United States Navy and Space Force. They might either have some dirt on him or like he can't go back to his home country or something. I'm just saying. They took him from Lockheed Martin. He came away with the Colonel's secret sauce, or from Northrop Grumman, came away with the Colonel's secret sauce. And next thing I know, he's got 5 patents, 5 UFO patents explaining how to manipulate gravity by manipulating space-time. Not a coincidence, chat. Not a coincidence. Okay, guys, I hope you had a great night. And on Friday, we were going to talk about more free energy, but we kind of talked a lot about free energy today. So we'll see. Anyway, thank you guys for your support. Oh, and last thought. Everybody was really mad about me saying that I'm not going to live stream on X, thinking that I'm doing it all for the money. Nothing could be farther from the truth. I still have done basically none of this for money at all. Of course, though, I am going to take free advertising dollars from Google. But it's more of a factor of if given the opportunity, I would rather stream on like Rumble or even Red Pilled, or maybe even, it's going to hurt me to say, Twitch, than X. And I want X's streaming to get better. I really, really do. So I hope Elon improves it, because it's actually ridiculous that you can't even see how many active viewing people are watching your stream. Why are we obfuscating the numbers like that? Anyway, that's the last thought. Anyway, guys, have a great night. MH270X. Love you guys. Peace out. Later. Which one should we do? Let's do this one. Chat, false alarm. That's not the one. I didn't want to do that one. Infrared eyes. Infrared eyes. In your eyes.
Infrared eyes. Scanning the black. Tracking the heat. Never turning back. Control 22. A covert gaze. Control 33 in the cosmic maze. Controls in the mix. Secrets untold. Silent watchers. Brave and bold. In the shadows, they silently glide. Protecting our interest. Far and wide. Spears. Sentinel of the night. Watching over with infrared sight. Alerting us to threats afar. Guiding our defenses like a guiding star. In the silence of space, they keep their post. Shields unseen, yet feared the most. With precision and speed, they warn of danger, keeping us safe from the missile's anger. As Beers, sentinel of the night, watching over with infrared sight, alerting us to threats afar, guiding our defenses like a guiding star. Controls in the mix, secrets untold, silent watchers, brave and bold. In the shadows, they silently glide, protecting our interest, far and wide. As Beers, sentinel of the night, watching over with infrared sight, alerting us to threats afar, guiding our defenses like a guiding star. As Beers, sentinel of the night, watching over with infrared sight, alerting us to